Welcome back to Cracking the Code. I am your GovCon Business Advisor, Steve, and today we are diving deep into the crucial topic for government contractors, NAICS Code 541330, Engineering Services. Whether you're a small business looking for set-aside opportunities or a large prime analyzing the competition, understanding this NAICS code is absolutely critical. Joining me today is Mon, our lead researcher with Proposal Helper, who has done an extensive analysis of the data, and Reena, our CEO, our industry strategic advisor, who will give us insights into how businesses can strategically position themselves in this market. So let's jump right on in. Mon, let's start with the basics. What is NAICS Code 541330, and why is this important?
Sure, Steve. NAICS Code 541330 is a classification for engineering services, covering a wide range of technical and engineering support, including civil, mechanical, electrical, and structural engineering. This NAICS is usually used heavily across federal agencies, making it a key opportunity area for government contractors.
All right, so that's a great foundation. But before we dig into the NAICS spending, let's quickly remind our listeners on the associated size standards for this NAICS code. So what is that NAICS code size standard?
That is actually a really good question. So size standards determine whether a business qualifies as a small under this NAICS. For engineering services under NAICS 541330, the size standard is typically based on average annual revenue rather than employee count. Right now, the SBA size standard for NAICS code 541330 is $25.5 million in average annual receipts over the past 5 years. But, and this is where it gets tricky, there are exceptions. If the contract is procured under the military and aerospace equipment, missile and space vehicles, or marine engineering and naval architecture, there is an exception, and the size standard jumps up to $47 million. This is because these contracts often involve higher complexity and larger project scopes.
What do you think is an important point about this, Reena?
So depending on the nature of the contract, a company that otherwise does not meet the small business size standard may qualify as a small business if one of these exceptions is assigned. So if you're a small business that is close to the standard or the size standard, you need to think about whether your growth could push you into a mid-tier status, and that's more competitive. And once you graduate from that small business status, the competition gets very severe and you're competing against very large firms. So it is important that you understand the difference, what the size standard is, and what exceptions are being assigned.
All right, so that's a great segue into agency spending, for example. Can you talk more about where the money is going?
If we look at the government-wide spending under this NAICS code, this is a highly active market. You will see that more than 10,000 contracts were awarded under this NAICS in fiscal year 2024, and billions of dollars were spent across multiple agencies. However, the majority of the funding is concentrated within a few major agencies. To surprise to no one, this in this case is the Department of Defense. Civilian agencies also like the Department of Transportation, Interior, and Veteran Affairs also play a significant role, while the DoD again dominates the spending in this category.
So Reena, we know that the DoD is the biggest player here. Can you talk about why this NAICS code is so critical for defense spending?
Absolutely, Steve. So engineering services are the core of military infrastructure, their weapons system, defense logistics. All of this comes under engineering. So the DoD spends heavily under this NAICS code because it covers everything from aircraft to naval system support to cybersecurity infrastructure, base facilities maintenance, usually falls under this NAICS code. And another key factor really are the IDIQs, the indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts. Many engineering contracts within the DoD are awarded through these IDIQs, meaning that the contractors who win seats on these vehicles have long-term revenue pipeline, but they're also large ceiling numbers, and therefore the spending is high in this NAICS code.
Okay, so if you're a business looking to get into DoD contracts under this NAICS code, what would be your strategy, or what should be their strategy when doing so?
Yeah, and just a reminder to our listeners, every business is unique and different, but in general, you have to, here are the three things that we would advise businesses, right? Anticipate DoD's future needs. What the DoD acquires under this NAICS code is not decided a year in advance. It's decided 5 to 10 years in advance. So businesses, large or small, they should lean in and learn, where is the DoD's next frontier? What are they preparing for? And what challenges will they face? They're going to look for solutions to those challenges. If you're simply going to wait for the RFP to tell you the requirement, you're always going to be caught flat-footed and disadvantaged. So lean in, learn where DoD is going in the future, and start preparing for that. Number two, I would say, know the contract vehicles. As I mentioned, most of these contracts aren't openly competed on SAM.gov. They're awarded through IDIQs, GSA, or sometimes even other transaction authority, OTA agreements. So you need to understand which contract vehicles align with your services and start to get either align yourself, get on those vehicles, or have partnerships to find the task orders on those vehicles. And third thing, strategic teaming. If you're a small business and you're new to the DoD space, we recommend you start as a subcontractor, especially in this NAICS code. Large primes are constantly seeking qualified small business partners to fulfill their subcontracting goals, and it really helps small businesses mitigate against considerable business risks and learn how the mission and environment works. So that would be our advice to companies who are looking to get on the DoD contracts under this NAICS code.
Wow, that's really, really good information. So outside of the DoD, we see substantial spending from agencies like the Interior, HHS, others. Mon, what's the trend across these civilian agencies?
Okay, so the trend that we saw while analyzing this data is that civilian agencies spending under the NAICS code 541330 is more project specific. So unlike the DoD, where contracts focus on long-term defense capabilities, agencies like the Interior, Department of Veteran Affairs, GSA, and others are more transactional. While their spending budgets are approved long before the spend, the projects are generally shorter duration and more transactional. So we could get into the details, but we could be here like 2 to 3 hours reviewing all that data. So really, if you're interested in getting to know what was the spending of these agencies, get a little bit more of the number of the contracts awards that they receive, please just download the report here attached in the video and reach out to us if you have any question.
All right, so if I'm in this business space, what should I focus on then?
Well, let me jump in here. I would say if you are targeting civilian agencies, you need to align with the agency-specific initiatives. DoD is funding major infrastructure programs, for instance. Under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, significant contracts have been awarded under this NAICS code 541330, focusing on infrastructure projects. Under DOT, there's a sub-agency, Federal Railroad Administration, FRA. They allocated substantial funds for railroad improvements. There's a restoration and enhancement grant, over $146 million were awarded to bolster intercity passenger rail services. And I'm picking on railroad here, but that's just an example. We can look at Federal Highway Administration. They plan contracts for engineering services related to designing roads, bridges, trails. All these contracts encompass a wide range of engineering services, including infrastructure planning, design, safety enhancements, and project management. So it's not just for those construction companies. And all of this aimed at modernizing the systems across the various agencies and the constituents and missions they support. And then on the other hand, we have agencies like the Veterans Affairs, who's focused on modernizing their healthcare facilities. So align your capabilities with the agency priorities, and that is key.
So are these contracts usually awarded under this NAICS code mostly used for construction-related work?
Well, not necessarily. Most of the work falls under engineering services rather than actual construction. So, for example, under NAICS code 541330 engineering services, several contracts have been awarded in the energy and space sectors, such as the Department of Energy, the Office of Defense Nuclear Security, awarded approximately $68 million contract to provide technical and analytical support services for the Office of Defense Nuclear Security. Okay, so we have this example within the Department of Energy, but let's look at NASA's Safety and Mission Assurance Engineering contract, for example. This one was valued nearly in $500 million and focused on safety and mission assurance engineering services. It really was focused on ensuring the safety of NASA's mission. So these examples just illustrate the diverse applications behind engineering services under this NAICS code and the various sectors that encompass technical support, safety assurance, and energy efficiency projects.
Oh, that is really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Reena, do you want to add anything here?
Well, here's what I say. This NAICS code, unlike the first one that we did, or the one that we did previously, 541512, 541330, it does not cover the IT or the information technology related projects. While sometimes this code does get assigned to IT projects, IT is a very small portion of 541330, which is more engineering focused. So often small businesses, they shy away from these projects. They shy away from projects under this NAICS code, especially new entrants, because they think that it's extremely complex. If you're a company that looks at contracts strategically, and you're pivoting from that vanilla IT company into a more niche engineering firm, you're not afraid to step back and contribute to a small portion of a larger engineering problem as a subcontractor, you will see long-term differentiation in the marketplace. And so many of our clients and other companies in the 541 NAICS code, they have been asking us, how do we differentiate ourselves? Well, this is one way to do it, is start in exploring 541330 engineering projects.
All right, that is really helpful. Now let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about competition. Mon, how do small businesses compare to large businesses under this NAICS code?
So from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 24, small businesses receive actually more awards at almost 5,800 contracts, while large businesses won little over 5,200 contracts. That said, large companies typically, as we could imagine, win contracts with higher dollar values.
I must say I'm very optimistic about the NAICS code, this NAICS code for companies who are willing to focus and solve complex problems within the DoD and other agencies, civilian agencies. This requires strategic investment and long-term thinking. You don't have to make a huge investment, but incremental improvements to the current systems that can address challenges of the next frontier can be a differentiator. But it requires foresight. It requires you to think in the long term. The government has aggressive small business participation goals, and teaming with large primes can be a smart way to enter this complex market.
Wow, this has been really insightful. So before we wrap this up, what's the best advice, Mon, that you have for any company that is looking to get into this space?
Well, it's really first just start doing market research. You need to understand the agencies that align with your capabilities. And from that point forwards, just track upcoming opportunities before they hit sam.gov.
Yeah, don't wait for that RFP to drop. Start building relationships with primes and agencies now. The DoD is very transparent about where their needs are. You just have to listen and find those incremental improvements and changes you can make to solve complex problems. And not just DoD, so are the civilian agencies. They are very transparent in where they're spending their money. So winning contracts in this space requires, as we have, again, repeating ourselves, requires strategic thinking and persistence. And one last thing I'm going to tell you, companies who want to enter and expand in this area that are typically awarded under the 541330, start looking at your online presence. Are you visible as a thought leader in your field? Do you publish white papers with ideas and suggestions for agencies to learn from you? You have to differentiate yourself.
So this is really great insights. And BidExecs publishes many of these upcoming IDIQs, even in pre-solicitation stage, that are detailed with incumbent and intel reports. I mean, it's just a plethora of information that we are collecting to try to help our clients be more successful in winning these opportunities. So I'd like everyone, visit our website, bidexecs.com or proposalhelper.com, and download these reports for the IDIQs that you're chasing. If you don't see the one that you need, just contact us and we'll gladly research it and send it over to you. So that's it for today. For more resources on government contracting, visit bidexecs.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.